Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for coming, whether you're here in person like Dawn, thank you for coming, or you're catching the replay. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this presentation and join us today. And Amanda and I are excited to be here. And I wanted to ask a question as we get started, and that is, when you were invited to this call, what prompted you to attend or take a look? What was it that piqued your interest? So just think about that for a second. And then my other question is, when it comes to your wellness and your health, are you confident that the tools that you have are helping you age and live to the fullest capability that you have? So those are two things to think about as we get started. So the truth is, in our world, there are many challenges to our wellness. Did you know that the United States spends nearly twice as much on healthcare than other developed nations, yet we still rank last in life expectancy? Not only that, but Americans have the highest rate of having multiple chronic illnesses among developing countries. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which some of them are on the screen there. But these challenges come from the water we drink, the air we breathe, the processed food that is so prevalent in our society, fast food, all of the radiation that we have from our electronics and chemicals in our environment. Those are some of the challenges that we face. So that is all impacting the wellness in America. And sometimes we have to ask ourselves, if something's not working, is it time to do something different? And that's what Amanda and I are going to share a little bit about today, about some of the ways, some of the things that we've incorporated into our lives and our families' lives to give us the best chance of living and aging well. So just a little bit about Amanda and I, in case you don't know, haven't met us yet. So my name's Mary. I've had my life journey has been very interesting and diverse. I grew up as an Army brat, and then, long story short, I joined the Army myself. And then when I got out of the Army, I became a hospital chaplain. And I was in a hospital setting for 10 years and really had an awakening, a personal awakening, not only professionally, but personally and health-wise too, which led me to a different path. And I want to, instead of helping people in a hospital in crisis, I want to help people avoid getting into the hospital and, to have the best life outside of that. And Amanda's going to tell more about herself too, but the way I see Amanda is that she's a fierce mom, a wife, and an advocate for wellness and sovereignty. So we're excited to share today. And Amanda, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you
Yeah.
for having this call today and presenting for me. And for those of you who, there might be some new viewers later that watch this recording. I've had phenomenal outreach from new people that are just interested in our story, in my story. And so I'm very excited to share this. So again, Dawn, thank you for being here today. And Mary, thank you for presenting. I I met Mary in 2021 through heart-centered advocacy. And so when we came together, we bonded on ethics and values, and those are the only kind of friendships I'm even interested in. And so it was absolutely a godsend. And when I met Mary, I saw her actually at a fair and with a LifeVantage booth. I knew the company name because I had been a distributor before. And so I'll share a little bit about that story in a little bit. Thanks, Mary. Sorry.
Oh,
And
no.
so when I very first met Mary, it was right after she was fired from a hospital for holding her autonomy and exercising informed consent. And and that was so powerful to me. And when I saw her with her booth for what we're here to talk about today, I immediately went up to her and I told her this product completely transformed my child's health when he was an infant. And for those of you who have seen my posts, it started off with like my share and my flyer for us coming together to share about this activation option. Like animals, human babies don't have a placebo effect. And that's what we witnessed in my son's journey. And he was an infant when this transformed his cellular health and kickstarted activation and opened pathways connecting his brain and body for communication and growth and development. So that is essentially the nutshell of what brings me to want to share this with anybody who is willing to give their own health just a second thought and just think about their own health and not outsource, but really be the source of their own choices through informed consent, essentially. So that is our passion point that connects us as friends. And here we are a few years later, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity to partner with one of my favorite women I've ever met. So here we are. And so I'll go ahead and just share, I guess, the quick story, unless I should hold off and just wait a little bit. Mary, you
Your choice,
decide me.
Amanda. You want
Great.
to do it now or later? Your choice.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, either way, whatever the flow is really.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I was a distributor with LifeVantage sharing the benefits of Protandim when my kiddo was an infant. When he was born, well, and the story is a little complex, so I'll kind of give a nutshell version of it. I was already a doula before I even got pregnant with my son, and I was attending home births and hospital births fully in support of the mothers, and worked completely independently to support them very successfully. And then when I became pregnant with my kiddo, the pregnancy was beautiful and awesome. And I was incredibly healthy. It was so low risk. It was just amazing. And I ate very organically. And I was very passionate about the informed consent of food transparency. And I was part of the non GMO rights to know campaigns and whatnot in 2010 and 11. And so, 2011 was the start of my pregnancy, and my son was born in the spring of 2012. And when he was 7.5 months along gestation, he decided to surprise us all and become breech presentation. And for anyone, unfamiliar with presentation of um, fetuses, the breech presentation is the feet or the butt down and the head up, and that's backwards. So, of course, at that point, I became high risk according to the institutionalized um, legalities. And I then, because everybody knew my case and I was already in the birth community, it was quite a topic. So everybody was, of course, just like way too aware of my circumstances. And um, I was then essentially um, limited by everyone else's knowledge of my condition with having a breech presentation. And so I did do everything that I could with chiropractic and acupuncture and even external, rotation efforts with the OBGYN. But at that point, our kiddo was just really decided he was fixing his decision. So um, because we live in a state where there are legal limitations, I was essentially it was forced to birth in the hospital. I could no longer do a home birth in any way. And so I compromised greatly, but I was prepared. I knew, what was expected and what was expected of me. So I went ahead and birthed in a hospital, and I made many compromises on my own comfort in order to essentially do things by the books. And that is the kind of person I am. And so in doing so, we just, put ourselves in a position where unfortunately, our rights were violated, and there was medical injury to our son at the time of birth, and we are further on in the process of gaining some clarity and seeking truth justice regarding it. But at the time, it was just tremendously traumatic, and um, so the I'm just going to put this out there that the records do reflect that my performance was impeccable. I did a phenomenal job birthing naturally, and it was just as literally natural as possible. And then, unfortunately, once he was outside of my body, other people's hands were um, just unfortunately inappropriate. And so he experienced a brain injury at birth. And we ended up at another major hospital that is tremendously like world renowned and wonderful. And there were novel methods that were integrated that did really reverse a lot of the damage, which was phenomenal. So regardless, he was full term birth, very healthy, and I organically ate. And so he still made a miraculous recovery, even in the most severe circumstance of experiencing the brain injury that he had. And the physicians at first, they weren't sure that he would even make it through the night. They really weren't sure that he would even make it through the week. And it was really, it started off monitoring him by hour, eventually day by day. And before we knew it, he was still alive for a week and beyond. And so I immediately began to breastfeed him as soon as I could, of course. But we lived in the hospital for about a month while he was, becoming stable to live. So a it was a very big miracle that we only needed to be there about a month based on the kind of injury that he had. And the physicians confirmed to me that they thought that it was because he was a full term grown baby that he made this kind of a beautiful recovery from the kind of injury he had, because it's not a usual outcome. And so we were able to go home a month after his birth. And I just was deeply in that recovery phase with him. And a few months later, some friends shared with me the this opportunity and the product Protandem and its ability to reduce oxidative stress and the remarkable science that backs it, and just everything, which Mary will get into. So these friends shared this with us, and I immediately said, how do I get involved? This is an absolute yes, no brainer. And so that was the beginning of my distributorship with LifeVantage when my child was just months old. And so I immediately started taking Protandem, the flagship product that broke all this beautiful ground. And my husband, we both started taking it and definitely noticing great improvements in our overall health and improvements in our son as I was full-time breastfeeding. And for being diagnosed with a brain injury and also having a condition of seizure disorder as well, it was just such a sensitive circumstance that we could really tell quite remarkable turnaround about. And so anywho, he began to really start getting interactive as a baby. And even though he was on some pharmaceutical seizure suppressant medications, he was still interactive. And that's really unheard of, especially with the strength of seizure suppressant medication and in an infant. So it was really remarkable. However, you could still kind of tell that he was a little different, and that's the best way to put it at this point. And it was very much because of the seizure suppressant medication, but everything was doing its job. And so fast forward to when he was about 16 months postpartum, he weaned and he was done breastfeeding. And I was like, then he's not getting Protandem into him. He needs it more than any of us. We all need it. But how do I get this into my baby at 16 months old? And at 16 months old, he was interactive, oohing and whatnot, and eyes were following and tracking across the room, but He didn't have core strength. He couldn't hold himself up to sit. We had to always hold him. And at 16 months, that's definitely kind of a delay in development. He could not crawl. He wasn't walking. Most kids by then are motoring around, and he was immobile at that point. So at 16 months, he's at least eating some solids, and we're doing some baby food. So I decide to take a Protandim pill and mash it up, mortar pestle, grind it into a powder, and sprinkle it on a spoon of baby food and trick him into having it. And he'd make like a sour face, but he would get it in. And we did that every single day, once a day for a meal. And 1 week later, 1 week later, we're all at home hanging out. He's on the floor. My husband and I are on the couch. We're just relaxing in the afternoon. And our son, who was not mobile before, decides, like, he's laying down on the floor, he rolls over on his belly and he lifts himself through his limbs, his arms and legs. He had never done that before. And my husband and I see him and we like gasp and we're like, and we're just holding still, trying to be real cool, like no reactions, no, don't distract him from whatever he's doing. And then he began to lift a hand and lift a knee and coordinate for the first time at 16 months, coordinate crawling. He had never crawled before in his entire life. And like I was doing the limb exercises, just all of the neuro building kind of pathway exercises, and he had never been mobile. So that was the big, huge aha moment where my husband and I were like, this is incredible and we need to keep this in him. We need to share it with people. So at that point, my husband and my husband at the time owned a bicycle shop in Denver, and we began to have meetings at our shop, and we were very successful for about 4 years with this company and sharing with everybody. And he became our miracle testimony. And so he oh, it's just remarkable. And of course, that was just the beginning. And for those of you who are on this call and you know me, you know my son, and you know how he's literally a walking miracle, and he's tremendously brilliant, and it's like incredible. Well, Protandim has been the longest standing therapeutic intervention choice that we've made as a family to keep consistent. And we've made other choices along the way that have also aided in essentially upping antioxidants and supporting the body's regenerative abilities cellularly. And he's just an absolute miracle. So in this picture, you can see him standing on a frozen lake. When the physicians were welcoming my husband and I into parenthood at the hospital, when they were watching our son hour by hour, they said, if he even lives through this, he's never going to walk. He's never going to talk. He won't be able to feed himself. He'll never do the normal things kids do, like riding a bicycle and jumping on a trampoline. Well, spoiler alert, he does it all. And so in this picture right here, he is ice fishing for the first time in December 2024. And we were taken out by a wonderful friend of 20 years. And he has a hut and all of it. He makes it very luxurious for ice fishing. So this guy is a good friend of our family whose only like thing he thinks about is how to get our kid on fish. And so this is a picture of our kiddo out there experiencing ice fishing for the first time in Colorado. And to be able to walk on ice was incredible that we could witness that. That was insane. And so our son at this point in life, I mean, he's 13 and we've been homeschooling for the past 5 years. He reached a point in education where he was frustrated with the other children interrupting the teacher and keeping him from learning. And he is a self-initiatory kind of self-led learner. So it was a no-brainer to start homeschooling. And just a couple years into homeschooling, we had him academically tested at the age of 11, and he was testing as high as the 13th grade level in language, reading, and comprehension, and at par with everything else. So for us, it's just been an incredible miracle to be as parents and to be able to share a story. And it's just the power of, just deciding to ask yourself the questions about, is what we're doing working for our health? And are there other options? And for me, I was always passionate about, of course, natural options and plant medicine and whatnot. So, so this is our story essentially. And there is more to add, but that is the beginning of why we have been very passionate about sharing, especially this flagship product, with people. So thank you, Mary, for letting me share and hosting this. And thank you, Savannah and Isaac, for also jumping on our call. Thank you for joining today.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda, for sharing your story. Every time I hear it, I pick something else up. And this time it was never say never. So never limit. I love how Dr. Dispenza says, don't limit your transformation. Don't put limits on what you can do or your body can do. And so
Absolutely.
Amanda and I were so excited to share just a little bit about what your body can do, because your body is a miracle and you have capabilities within your body that are waiting to be turned on. So the story with Protandim really came into the public eye back in 2005, but the story goes much, back much farther, which I'll share briefly here. But in 2005, there was some research being done in the Denver area by a doctor named Joe McCord and some others that was getting national attention because of what they were finding. And so at the time, John Quinones was on ABC Primetime. And so the ABC Primetime was like, well, we're going to go figure out what's going on. Why are they saying this? Why are they making these statements, these outlandish statements? We're going to go investigate. And so we have a replay of a clip from the ABC Primetime if anybody wants to watch it. But the short story is that John Quinones got put on the NRF2 activator Protandim, and they did blood tests to see, how it worked for him. But what they found was essentially, which I'll share later, is that this activator that they've put together to basically turn on a capability your body has in your body was able to address powerfully one of the root causes of aging and disease states. And that is oxidative stress, which is essentially free radical damage, or as we can compare it to the rusting of an engine or the browning of an apple when it's on the counter, when it's exposed to oxygen, and even just the processes that we have, our cellular processes, they create free radicals and oxidative species that just totally damage your cells. And as that happens, we experience the aging process and we experience disease states, because our body is taken away from balance and homeostasis, and that's never a good thing. So you can see on this graphic all of the ways that oxidative stress affects your body, from your brain all the way down. And so this is a huge problem. It's one of the biggest root causes of aging and disease. You can go to PubMed and you can research oxidative stress and any disease state that you want to research. The first time I did it, I did chronic pain, and you can see the link from oxidative stress to inflammation, even, neuroinflammation and things like that in different ways. So the other night I researched oxidative stress just alone, and there were over 300,000 results. And you can see the exponential curve in the amount of research that's being done on oxidative stress, because we are learning just how linked it is to disease states. So we use the term activation. I just wanted to briefly just describe what it is. Activation is turning on your body's capabilities, and it can be done with nutrients. Pharmaceutical companies try to do it with pharmaceuticals, but we can actually do it with the power of herbs. And, it's different from just trying to fill in gaps that we might have from our nutrition. This is using nutrients to influence the way our genes express. So our genes, as we experience all of the challenges to our wellness, they can go rogue. They can either underexpress or they can overexpress. And activation brings them back into balance. It tunes, it's like the tuning of a piano. And that's what this NRF2 activator does. And just to give you a little bit more info about Dr. McCord, the story, like I said, goes back way farther than 2005. Dr. McCord actually was the one who co-discovered our body's master antioxidant. Not the ones that we try to eat, but the ones that our bodies can actually make. So he discovered that all the way back in 1969. That's when my dad graduated from college. But how many humans have not heard of superoxide dismutase or SOD? There's so many people who don't even know what their bodies are capable of. And that's really what Amanda and I are sharing. That's why we're so passionate about it. I personally believe that everybody deserves to know what their body's capable of. And so that's why I'm so passionate about it. But his discovery was so significant that the antioxidant is measured in McCord units. So when researchers are measuring SOD, it's measured in McCord units, which is really amazing. So based on this ABC prime time that they did, and based on the research that came out from Dr. McCord, we actually have an FDA approved statement, which is unheard of for a supplement, because FDA, they don't approve supplements, really. They just scrutinize them, really. But we can actually say that we can reduce oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days with the flagship activator Protandim. There's been some peer-reviewed studies, which I'll just briefly show later, but you can see what it does when we can activate our survival genes, and we can also reduce that level of cellular damage. You can see what happened in this horse in 90 days. So as Amanda was saying earlier, animals don't have placebo effects. So one of the research studies that was done on Protandim and NRF2 activation said that NRF2 activation may become the most extraordinary therapeutic and preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. That's a huge statement, and that's why Amanda and I share. And the NRF2 pathway was discovered all the way back in 1994, yet how many people have heard of NRF2, or that we can make our own antioxidants? And again, that's just why that's what fuels Amanda and I to share. So since that activator had come out in 2005, LifeVantage has actually expanded the number of things that we can activate, and have, through the power of herbs again, figured out how to activate another pathway that targets our mitochondria. So our mitochondria are very important parts of our cells. I won't get too deep into it, but cellular energy and our DNA, all tied up with the mitochondria. And I learned recently that it's the most delicate part of the cell. And so it's easily damaged. And it makes sense when you think and learn that mitochondrial dysfunction is also one of the root causes of disease. You can look up mitochondrial dysfunction and different disease states and see the link. And just one more really interesting note, really important places in your body have a higher percentage of mitochondria. Women's ovaries, the heart, the brain. So if we can make our mitochondria healthier and stimulate new mitochondria, healthy mitochondria being formed, then that is an amazing thing for our body. And then I'm not going to touch on the last one too much here today, because it's just too much in one day. But NAD is another important part of our cellular system. Time magazine named NAD the fountain of youth. We can activate that in our bodies as well. It's the same thing that happens when you intermittent fast. And the brilliant people at LifeVantage, they found a way with herbs. 24 hours on the NAD activator is more effective than 30 days of intermittent fasting. That's the power of nutrients and your body combined. And then with with just more about synergy. When you combine these three products, they call it the tri-synergizer. It increases the effectiveness of each of these products, and it has a 1900% uptick in what it's doing in your body. So it's just amazing. It blows my mind all the time. Every time I present, I'm just like, wow, it really is awesome. So I just mentioned quickly about our antioxidants that our body can make. You can see the antioxidant pyramid here on the screen, and we try to eat antioxidants, right? Vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E. Those are at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of the protective effect that they have on your body. Recently I did a reel on my Instagram. You'd have to drink 15 of those POM drinks, the pomegranate drinks, a day to do what one NRF2 pill is doing. And you'd have to eat 77 tablespoons of turmeric every second. Turmeric is one of the ingredients in the NRF2 activator, but it's that combination of those herbs that really does the trick. But not only can you up level that antioxidant SOD, you can up level catalase and glutathione. There's people who go spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on glutathione infusions, but you don't need to do that because our body's intelligent and can make its own. So it's awesome. But one of the things one of our consultants said, Dr. Nettles, he is a holistic chiropractor. He said, if we're not activating, we're deteriorating. Because if we're not living with the full capabilities of our bodies, those challenges that we talked about earlier are going to overwhelm our bodies and our cells, leading to disease and accelerated aging. So here's just a quick, I'm not going to talk about this too much, but here are some of the independent organization that have researched the Protandim, the flagship activator. And so those are all available to you if you would like to see them. But I wanted to show you what's possible. I love this slide because it's so diverse and it really shows you the capability of activating your body and the bodies of your animals as well. So the ones that I really like to highlight is this young girl that had vitiligo, which is when you lose the pigmentation in your skin. You've probably seen people that have that condition where they have patches of skin without like pigment in it. Well, this young girl, this was just at the time that we had the NRF2 activator, her pigment started to fill back in, which you can see in that picture. And you can see the effects on animals who, again, don't have placebo effects. But one of the things that's more recent in our suite of activation is activated collagen. So I'll talk about that in the next slide, but I have my eye picture on here because I had added the activated collagen in a couple of years ago when it came out. And fast forward a couple of years, I had someone come pick something up from Marketplace, and she made a comment about my eyes. And that made me think, well, I haven't really done a before and after with the collagen. I'm going to go back and take it. And I know that like our eye color can be affected by lighting and all of that thing, but my eyes have definitely gotten brighter. The whites of my eyes have gotten whiter, and you can see it looks like I've had an eyelid lift. I have not had an eyelid lift. I don't personally want to go cut any part of my face ever. So that's what I experienced with the activated collagen. And I wanted to just briefly share why. Why is activated collagen different from another collagen product that you get in the store? It's because it's turning your body's ability to make its own collagen back on. And it's really fascinating the way it happens. There's actually 4 genes that are in charge of your collagen production, and there's a gene that actually ends up degrading your collagen. And the activated collagen addresses both of those things. It upregulates the activation of your collagen, and it downregulates the gene that degrades it. And then also, there's 28 types of collagen in your body. A lot of collagen supplements have maybe 1 or 2 types. But when you're not addressing that loss or collagen production, you're really not going to see much of a difference. If you think about if you've taken collagen products in the past, have you noticed a difference? A lot of people look to their, their hair and their nails, but there's so many other things that collagen affects, which you can see here. And then the eyes are 90% collagen, which is why we're seeing so many people have such a drastic impact in their eyes. A lot of people's eyes are just opening up. You can see Betty's, her results, her 5-month results when she added the collagen. And one of the things I like to point out is her neck and her marionette lines have really diminished. So Betty's a famous face now because her results are really great. And then I'm not going to cover this very, very, very much at all, but the last activator that LifeVantage came out with was a GLP-1 activator. So GLP-1 is actually a hormone in our body that I had never heard of until just a couple of years ago when the whole Ozempic craze started happening. So GLP-1 is a hormone, and these pharmaceutical drugs that are on the market are mimicking this hormone. So what happens when we try to mimic something is in our bodies that our body stops producing it on its own. So it's actually working against your body and not with your body. This GLP-1 activator actually increases your body's own production. And in the clinical trial that they did, they found that it upregulates your own production by 200% in 12 weeks in average. And I've just learned that it's about so much more than weight loss. GLP-1 is cardio and neuroprotective as well. So it just goes beyond weight loss. But of course, in our society, we focus on weight loss. But what I love about LifeVantage is if they come out with a product, you can guarantee that it is going to be synergistic with the other products that we have. The collagen and the NRF2, when you combine them, they actually reduce immune stress signaling. So if you remember back from COVID, you'd hear about the cytokine storms. They found that this combo reduces that stress signaling in your body. So your cells, if they're in flight or fight mode all the time, they're not able to do what they're supposed to do. And so that combo helps rein that in. Well, they found that the NRF2 flagship activator and the mind body is working together to activate 22 other genes that are in charge of your internal organ repair. So just as your outside is aging, your inside's aging as well. And then, there were some other synergistic effects, but I'm going to stop there because it's just, if I try to tell it all at once, it's just too much. But that kind of gives you an overview of just all of the things that we can activate right now. And the other thing I love about LifeVantage is they're on the forefront of this study called Nutrigenomics, how we can affect the way our genes express with nutrients. And the vice president of our research and development, she's like, in a presentation, she said, I have 30 ideas floating around in my head. And I was like, this is exciting because I personally want to see what they're going to come up with next. Like, what are we going to activate next? So stick around if you want to find out, stay in touch with us. But I just always come back to hope. There's so many people, that are praying for research to be done for a cure on certain diseases. But sometimes we're so focused on looking toward a cure that we forget that there's root causes that create this disease state in our body. And there's hope that we can address those now. We don't have to wait for a cure. We can address these root causes now. And that is the hope that Amanda and I are so passionate about sharing. So with anything, there is opportunity. We like to tell the whole story, and the whole story is that LifeVantage is a publicly traded and debt-free company that is continuing to expand. They are right now, they are in many countries throughout the world, I think 20. So like people that live in Thailand, people that live in the Philippines, they can not only experience the power of the product, but they can also share it so that others hear about it and also be compensated for it. So there is opportunity with LifeVantage if you have a heart to help other people address root causes and live with the full capability of their body. There is opportunity. Um, I did some research the other day because I was just curious. There's a study that was actually done by a pharmaceutical company for multiple sclerosis. They did a study comparing their drug to the NRF2 activator that we have, and also broccoli, because broccoli has a component that activates your NRF2 pathway. And they found that the NRF2 activator that we have at LifeVantage was 2.5 more times effective to activate this pathway in our body. And so I went back and I looked. I said, I wonder how much this pharmaceutical company made last year. Their whole suite of products generated $4.4 billion in 2024. And then I got curious to see how much do pharmaceutical companies spend on advertising a year? $19.45 billion. So I kind of compare it. The pharmaceutical companies are paying all this money to advertise. LifeVantage is compensating their distributors, their consultants to get the word out about this. And so that creates an opportunity. So our vision, part of my vision is that I want to build a community of wellness advocates who help others live their best lives. And I love that Amanda is part of that again. And what I love about our community is it's diverse. We have people that are in the medical field themselves. And then we have veterinarians and we have stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home dads. So there's opportunity that exists. And whether you want to get involved and share it and for compensation, or you want to just help Amanda get the word out. One of the things I love about Amanda is that she's like a master referrer. Like she helped me find my hairstylist. She helped me find, massage therapists, energy workers, healers. And so when you think of Amanda and you hear about people who need to know this information, you can refer them to her. So yeah, and Dawn with the skin therapy. So I haven't gotten to see Dawn yet, but hopefully soon. But our community is diverse, and however you want to get involved, if you want to experience the power of the product or you want to share it with others, there's a place for you in the community. And I just wanted to say thank you for coming today. It means a lot to Amanda and me that you'd come and just take a look at what we're sharing. So I wanted to thank you for that. But I wanted to ask a question. Imagine waking up in the morning and knowing that you're actively supporting your body's ability to live and age better. How would that change your life? How would that change the way you wake up and feel about your day? For me, it makes me feel good and confident, and it gives me hope. So if you want to learn more, you can always book a one-on-one call with us so that we can just talk personally about what your needs are and help you find the best solution that works for you. But I'll stop recording and we can definitely take questions if anybody has any. But thanks again for coming.
Hey, Mary, before you stop
Yeah,
recording, could
yeah,
I just add a little bit?
yeah,
'Cause
sure.
I've had some things also just flow through that I would love to share because
Sure.
we kind of have dabbled. Thank you so much. Thank you for this beautiful presentation. You are incredibly methodical, and I just absolutely love the way that you get curious and you compile information and you present your connections. And to be your friend now for 4 years has been such a blessing, and I just really appreciate your presence in my life and what you bring to everything. And yes, you are curious, Sagittarius. I love that. And so I want to add, essentially, we kind of had mentioned how I'm back with LifeVantage. I'm back to sharing this because I had been a distributor when my boy was an infant, and we had this huge aha moment. And I want to share just a little bit about why I'm back, essentially. Um, and also just kind of highlight with the time and what we've seen, because I had stepped away from LifeVantage in 2016, and it was truly just due to me outsourcing my own choices, essentially, and really listening to other people and letting criticism get the best of me. And at that point in 2016, I actually had just met Savannah, and I bet Savannah, you can kind of think to that point where we had first met. Um, I was I was really, really tired and exhausted looking and whatnot. And it was just before I had gone through a really severe miscarriage. And 2017, I miscarried my daughter, and I was really far along into the pregnancy. So it actually almost took me out. And I was not on Protandim in any way from 2016 moving forward until I found Mary in 2021. And so for those 5 years, those several years right there, I was um it's wild to look back to pictures of myself. I had much more aging present in my physical appearance. And I also I think this is just important to really be vulnerable. I was in the worst place of my mental health. I was in therapies because I was having so much PTS come up in ways that I absolutely was just, I was in the worst place I've ever been in. I was in my darkest years of my life, and I was not on Protandim. And there were other components to my life that made things very difficult. But at that time, I had met Savannah, um, and I think about how now, 2025, I literally feel and look like 10 years younger than I did back then. And it is tremendously wild at how much I've built my health since getting back on Protandim. And like I said, I met Mary at a holistic fair. I saw her booth. I knew the company name. I ran up to the booth. She was the first one I went to, and I said, "Hi, I'm Amanda. I used to be with this company. This changed my life. I need to be your customer now." So I literally became her customer instantly because I knew I needed this back in my biology. I needed to have the support of reduced oxidative stress, increase antioxidants, and in a synergistic, continual, consistent way, because it really is absolutely different from anything else I've ever explored, which I've explored a lot. So I just wanted to share how, essentially that's the reason why I'm now back to sharing this very actively as a distributor with LifeVantage again, because the opportunity, it's always been there. I always knew it. And it was one of my biggest regrets as an adult to ever step away from this opportunity, because my husband and I had filled our old bike shop with weekly meetings for 4.5 years and shared it with people and changed a lot of lives, really benefiting people's health, like helping them take their health back into their own hands, which that's incredibly remarkable. And, 10 years ago, it was not quite so easy to reach people about their own health and autonomy. Nowadays, it's definitely a lot more of a hot topic. And in just the past couple weeks of reattending meetings, it is phenomenal what has been reflected in society, and how LifeVantage's products can address what we've been through in the past 5 years, especially, and what has impacted society through the last 5 years. And for those of you on the call, you know what I'm talking about. And I just wanted to highlight that because we have a lot of people to help. People need help, and I came running back to this. So I hope that means something to you, and you'll just really give it a good consideration, as far as even just making use of it for your own health, and hopefully sharing it with others and wanting to join partnership, because we're here and we're just hitting the ground running. Thank you, Marie, for letting me share that. Oh, I also really wanted to share how a couple of updates we've recently received on our son's health. About 2 weeks ago, he had a routine EEG. Because he has epilepsy, he does receive very routine monitoring and whatnot. And so we completed an EEG, and yesterday we received the results that the EEG itself did not show present presentation of epileptic seizure symptoms. And that was the first time in his whole life that's ever come up as a result after one. And we were celebrating. That also immediately followed us attending a rehab appointment with his rehabilitation specialist, who in the appointment was like, you guys, his range is markedly increased. Like it's his condition of hypertension that restricts his ability to fully flex and stand straight. And so, literally, just getting the knees straight is what is the hardest part. Just getting the heels on the ground is the hardest part. And he is reflecting incredible increase in range of motions, and he's been lifting weights lately. So, he's building strength. And the rehab specialist was blown away. And he said, Forrest, you're like right up here in my like top 99% of like most remarkable cases that I have. And he was like, you are an anomaly. We can't even explain you. And I can only really like attribute this to the choices we make. Protandim is one of the biggest choices that we make to make him have it. And he does. He takes it every day with his bison liver. He just gets those capsules in and he loves it and he's proud of it. And I just wanted to share the incredibly remarkable updates that we just received just yesterday on his health. So thank you, Mary, for letting me share that extra bit.
Oh, for sure. And it made me, I was thinking too, I forgot to mention about your coupons. So
Thank you.
Amanda has 10% off coupons for customers that I think are good through the weekend. I think they were good for a week. So I think they're good through at least
Yes.
Friday night.
They
That's
expire
why
Saturday night.
Saturday night. Okay, that's why we kind of did a few calls just in case, because I'm all about saving people money. I have a little bit of my Nana in me. And then she does have 10% off coupon for a consultant pack. So yeah,
Yeah, thank you. And I
yeah,
think the consultant pack discount expires like a month out from
yeah, a
now.
month.
The
Yeah, you can
customer ones expire Saturday night.
hmm Yeah,
Yeah, thank you, Mary.
yeah, you're
And
welcome.
thank you, Savannah and Dawn, for joining my call today too. Do you guys want to share anything before we stop recording, or should we stop recording first?